Welcome to Excel Academy. Now we will be doing the revision for role of company secretary. This chapter is in CS Foundation. And here what we will be doing is this is an audio revision. So you need to have the study material, that is the textbook, and a notebook with a pen to listen to this audio revision. So how this is planned is that I will be revising the entire chapter which is based on what is there in the study material. So I will be revising and I will be telling you the important points and I will also be telling you the meaning. So how you have to use this audio revision is that first you need to listen to it along with your study material, and once in a while I will tell some points. You should just make note of it in the study material or in your notebook. Once you listen to the entire audio, then you study the textbook and you study it thoroughly as soon as you finish listening to the audio. By this way you will get 100% clarity about each concept, and also it will be easier for you to do well in the exam. Why we are doing this audio revision is that this will help you to make sure that the concepts are clear and you should be perfect in the concepts. To listen to this audio revision, please use a headphone or earphones. That will be better for you. Coming to role of company secretary, first thing is, why is this chapter there in CS Foundation? In CS Foundation old syllabus, we did not have the chapter called role of company secretary. It was actually quite funny because a student who is studying company secretary does not know what is a company secretary, who is a company secretary, what is the job of company secretary, till that student comes to CS executive. That is why ICSI has finally done what is required and they have added the chapter just to give a brief idea of what is the roles, responsibilities and the future career of company secretaries. This will help students in the foundation level itself to know what they are getting into and what is the great future which they are having. So as we know that the learning objective of this chapter is very simple: to know who is a company secretary and how he is going to be a vital bridge between the executives, the board, the shareholders, the government. Between everyone, company secretary is like a bridge, and what is that? That is what we study in this chapter. Now let us come to the introduction. So in the introduction, what are they saying? They're just saying that ICSI, that is the Institute of Company Secretaries of India, is the body which is the only body in entire India which can regulate the profession of company secretaries. So please remember that the ICSI comes directly under the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Government of India. So end of the day, this is a part of the Government of India. Yes, it is a separate statutory body. We have a separate act called Company Secretaries Act 1980, but it is end of the day part of the government. So there is only one body in entire India which regulates the role of company secretaries, the profession of company secretaries, the exam. Nobody else can do. See, usually when you study degree, you have many universities, colleges. You can get a degree from any university, correct? But a company secretary profession qualification can be obtained only by the ICSI. There is only one body in India who conducts this. Now, we need to understand that the company secretary role is extremely important in the global business environment. That means now we have many new kinds of business. We have multinational companies and we also have many companies which are opening in different countries. When this is there, each country has a different law, each country has a different regulatory regime, and it is important that in whichever role we are as a company secretary, we should make sure the company is following the laws and regulations. The very simple definition of role of company secretary is that the company secretary should make sure company is 100% compliant with all the rules and regulations which it has to follow. When we say rules and regulation, it may be Companies Act, it may be the Income Tax Act, it may be GST, it may be any of the laws which are in India. Of course, company secretary need not be expert in every field, but he should ensure or she should ensure that everything is in order. The company secretary can take help from chartered accountant, lawyer, other professionals, but end of the day the responsibility of compliance to make sure the laws are followed properly is with the company secretary. So that is what you need to understand. So we also have to have a clear idea of what is the core competence of a company secretary. It is corporate governance and compliance. Of course, company secretaries can also advise the board on different matters like strategy decisions or the governance, how the company can improve to global standards. These obviously we can do. But in general, we are expert in compliance and corporate governance. When we say compliance, when we say governance, it is not just to follow what is there in the law. Yes, that is good, but as a company secretary, our role is to make sure the company is ethical. The company is doing everything ethically and not just as per the rule, and you are just following the law in letter. You should always follow the law in letter and in spirit. Now, coming to the next topic, the Companies Act 2013. What does it tell about company secretary? In fact, it is one of the acts where the role of company secretaries has increased due to the amendment. Yes, in 2013 we had the new Companies Act. Before that it was Companies Act 1956. So in the new Companies Act, what they're saying is that company secretary is a key managerial personnel as per section 203. So company secretary should make sure that the company follows all the laws, and along with the other key managerial personnel like the managing director, the CEO, the CFO, or the whole-time director, company secretary is also there. So you are already understanding what is the level of company secretary. It is not like you did some MBA and you got some job. That is very, very medium level of job. But company secretary is advising the directors, sitting with the directors in the same level of directors. That is why we call them as key managerial personnel. You only tell me. The company law is telling that who are the KMP? The managing director, the chief executive officer, the chief financial officer, the whole-time director, and the company secretary. That itself is enough for you to know what is the role, responsibility, and status of a company secretary. Going further, section 205 of the Companies Act talks about what is the functions of company secretary. You only think the government has thought it fit to have one full section in company law, which is Companies Act 2013, section 205. This name of the section itself is functions of a company secretary. So what is this? These three things you have to know very well. Usually I tell please don't by heart or memorize, but this thing you please memorize, because if not for exam, if somebody asks you what is function of company secretary, you should know, because you are a student who is studying CS course. So what are the functions of a company secretary? First is very simple, to make sure the company follows all the rules and regulations of the Companies Act and the company's rules. That is the first thing. Second thing, to make sure that company follows the secretarial standards. I'll tell you what it is. The third thing is to do all the duties which may be prescribed. What is the duties which may be prescribed? That is the company's appointment and remuneration of managerial personnel rules. So according to those rules, what are the different duties which is prescribed? So as you can see, there are 8 points in the book. For example, to assist the board in conduct of affairs of the company. That is a very general point. To assist the board, if you see point number 5, the company secretary should be a person who will assist the board to conduct the affairs of the company, means everything related to that. Correct? That is a very huge responsibility. To represent before various regulators, that is like the income tax department, GST, or the court, the company secretary can go and represent the company. To assist and advise the board on good corporate governance and complying with the corporate governance requirements and best practices. That is another role and duty of a company secretary, which comes under functions of company secretary. And apart from that, you have regular stuff like to obtain approval of the board and general meeting, and to get approval from the government whenever required as per the Companies Act. So the company secretary is the face of the company when it comes to dealing with anybody, whether it is government, the shareholders, the investors. Everywhere this person is involved. So it is very important. See, it is as good as who is the main person in a company, who is the main person in a movie, like the hero or the heroine. Same like that, if that person doesn't do well because they are the communication channel to the outside world, you will really not have a good product or a good service. Just like that, company secretary has to be very smart, not just in the knowledge but also in the communication. Next, we come to signing the annual return. Section 92 of the Companies Act says that every company has to file an annual return every year. But who should sign it? It should be signed by the company secretary in employment and the director. If the company secretary is not there in the company, then a practicing company secretary, that is, who has a private practice. And in a listed company, annual return has to be signed by company secretary in employment and also by the company secretary in practice. Both the company secretary in employment and practice. So two company secretaries have to sign when it comes to listed company. That means the person who is an employee of the company and an external person like a consultant. Both CS have to sign. And also we need to understand that when the paid up share capital of a company is 10 crores or more, or turnover is 50 crores or more, that time it has to have a signature from a practicing company secretary. Now we come to the topic of secretarial audit, section 204. Secretarial audit is one of the new additions in Companies Act 2013. Please remember three sections very carefully in Companies Act, that is section 203 related to key managerial personnel, 204 secretarial audit, and 205 which we just covered, functions of company secretary. These three sections are very important to know about role of company secretary in Companies Act 2013. Coming to secretarial audit, what is it? Audit is what? Basically, it is a post-mortem procedure where we check whether the company has followed all the rules and regulations properly. One common thing chartered accountant does financial audit of a company or any other business end of the year. What is the chartered accountant checking? He or she is checking whether the company followed the accounts properly. Did they follow the tally and the other entries properly? Did they follow the accounting standards? Did they make sure that there is no cheating or window dressing or unnecessary booking of expenses? Have they paid the taxes within time? This is what the job of a chartered accountant in the financial audit. But the ICSI felt that apart from the chartered accountant work, there are many compliance related work, regulatory related work, law related compliance which nobody is checking, and there is no proper procedure for that. That is why the Institute of Company Secretaries of India, New Delhi, had advised government that we have to introduce something called secretarial audit. That means the audit which will check not only the financial record, that anyway CA will do, no problem, but whether the company did the secretarial record, like what? Notice to the board meeting. Did we send the proper notice? Did we send to all directors? Was the notice format correct? Or did we make sure that after the meeting we wrote the minutes of the meeting and we circulated the minutes? The minutes is signed. Or the shareholders means, did we give them share certificate? Did we call them for the AGM? These are the things which nobody was checking. That is why the ICSI said that the best person to check this is obviously company secretary. ICSI will not tell lawyer should check or CA should check, obviously, because we are the expert in this field. ICSI told the secretarial audit should be done by company secretary only. And actually the government listened because they got convinced, because just because ICSI tell, government will not listen. They got convinced. They saw that yes, to avoid the big scam like Vijay Mallya, Nirav Modi, Mehul Choksky, all the scams which you are seeing, you need to follow the law properly and you should have a mechanism. And that is why in 2013, when the Companies Act came, they introduced secretarial audit. So secretarial audit, as of now, every company need not do. Maybe slowly they will add in the future. But as of now, for example, what you should know, every public company, not private company, please remember very clearly, for private company there is no secretarial audit. No matter how big the private company is, there is no secretarial audit. If it is a public company having paid up capital 50 crores or a turnover of 250 crores or more, they need to get secretarial audit report from a practicing company secretary. As of now, this is the law. It is a very good law. In the future, they may add private companies, or they may have a turnover of paid up capital limit for private companies also. So what is the good news now is a secretarial audit can be done only by company secretary. As of now, yes, the number of companies will be less because everybody will not have paid up capital 50 crores, turnover 250 crores, any one criteria, not both, because they're using the word or. As you can see, point A and point B, between that there is one word or. So we need to understand that if any one of these criteria is satisfied, we need to have practicing company secretary. In future, let us hope they will add it even for private companies. But for exam, this much if you know, it is enough. Next, we come to what is the concept of pre-certification of forms. What is pre-certification of forms? See, in a company, we have to file forms to the government at different times. For example, we take one new director. We need to file a form for appointing the director. For example, form number DIR 12. That is the name of the form. Or if we pass any special resolution, we will be filing form number MGT 14. Don't worry about the form numbers, just understand the concept. Or if we alter the share capital, we are filing form number SH7. So whenever we file the form, whether the form is filled properly or not, government is telling the company secretary should check. That process we call as pre-certification. So actually government is giving their job to us and they're giving their responsibility to us. So it means they trust us a lot. They trust company secretary. So it is important we don't break the trust of the government. Of course, there are cases where some professionals have misused. They have certified all forms even if they did not follow the law. They said, okay, everything is correct. Company has done everything correctly, though it was not correct. That is misuse of the role of company secretary. But what we need to know is that government has 100% trust on us. Government is telling pre-certify the e-form. If I say that a company secretary has seen the form and has signed saying that sab kuch theek hai, everything is correct, that means it is correct. That is the trust government has on you. And that is why there are many forms which pre-certification is there, and we can do the pre-certification. Of course, even chartered accountant and cost management accountant can do, but the knowledge of company law is mainly with company secretaries. So don't tell CA don't have company law knowledge. There are some CAs who have very good company law knowledge, but mainly it is company secretaries have 100% knowledge in company law. CAs are very much expert in accounting, taxation, correct? Things like that. I have seen some chartered accountants who are very good in company law, but there are very few in number like that. Anyway, so that is pre-certification of e-forms. It is quite strange that in the book there is only one sentence about pre-certification and it is very difficult to understand. That is why I told you a clear understanding of what it is. Next we come to duty to report fraud. Yes, a company secretary in practice has to make sure that if they find out there is some fraud happening in company, they have to report it. And this is a duty which has been cast under section 143 subsection 12 of the Companies Act. So if it is a company secretary in practice, when he's doing his work as a company secretary, when he's looking at the records of the company, he finds out that, oh, dal mein kuch kala hai, there is a fraud over here. If he finds out, that time it is his duty to inform the company. And if company is not taking action, he should inform directly central government. When we look at the company's audit and auditors rules 2014, what it says is that if the auditor has some very strong reason and a strong evidence he has got against the company relating to any fraud, he should report the matter to the central government within 60 days from the day he got to know that some fraud is happening. That is the duty of the company secretary. So, if the company secretary does not report to the government, he or she will be punishable with fine which is 1 lakh but which may be up to 25 lakh rupees. Yes, you did not do any fraud, but knowing somebody has done fraud, if you remain silent, that is equally wrong. That is why this punishment is there. Next thing, we come to acting as scrutinizer in e-voting. So what this is very, very simple. When we come to a listed company, all the shareholders come for the annual general meeting. In the annual general meeting, they will do the voting. Correct? And now we have the concept of electronic voting, which has been introduced as per rule number 20 of the company's management and administration amendment rules. So here every listed company can go for a e-voting. That is the option which is there, that is electronic voting. Shareholders need not physically come to the meeting hall, they can vote from their house and the resolution should be sent to them. So here the board of directors can appoint a company secretary in practice to make sure that this entire e-voting process is fair and transparent, to make sure that everything is according to the law. Of course, CA and CMA can also be appointed, but usually whatever I have seen, all the companies appoint company secretary because they know company secretary is expert in company law, e-voting, and the role we call it as scrutinizer. Scrutinizer means to scrutinize that everything is correct or wrong, and then the company secretary will give a report about what they have done in the e-voting and whether the results are correct or not. Apart from this, what is the other roles of company secretary? Appointment as an administrator. So company secretary can be appointed as an interim or company administrator from the panel to be maintained by the central government or any institute or agency authorized by the central government for rehabilitation or revival of sick companies. Sick companies means which are not doing well, they are in loss. That time the something like management, something like manager, a company secretary can be appointed. That is again a very great respect which the government has reposed on us in section 259. Section numbers, please don't worry, again I'm telling you, just know what is the role of company secretary. You just make points 1, 2, 3, 4, what are the roles. Then company liquidators. So company secretaries can also be company liquidator, that is when the company is closing, they can be the person who manages that, we call it as company liquidator. Then professional assistants to company liquidator, even if you're not a company liquidator, you can help a company liquidator. Then also a company secretary in practice who has 15 years experience. So if there is a CS who is in practice for 15 years, then they can also become a technical member of the National Company Law Tribunal. So this is the long-term benefits you get. Initially, you might not get very big benefits after doing this course, but in long term, nobody can catch you. You will reach the sky. That is the high level of this course, and also the potential is unbelievable. You only think, if you are a member of the National Company Law Tribunal, it is as good as being a judge in a court. What is National Company Law Tribunal? It is a court for company law matters. You can be a technical member on that. So it's a great responsibility, but of course you need 15 years experience. So that is relating to the NCLT. Apart from that, of course, you can appear before NCLT, just like how lawyer goes to court. Yes, company secretary cannot go to high court, but company secretary is authorized to appear before the court for company law matters, which is NCLT. So you can represent any of your client in that court. Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016. A company secretary in practice can be an insolvency practitioner. That is similar to what we call company liquidator, but it's a separate act, not company act. Companies Act. It is Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016. In securities laws, what is the role of company secretary? Now we need to understand that the company secretary role has increased a lot, especially with the recognition by SEBI. The Securities and Exchange Board of India, which is the principal regulator for all the securities market in India, has reposed great faith and great belief in the profession of company secretaries. Within the last 2 years, they have given more than 5 to 6 new recognitions for company secretaries. So one thing is that appearance before SAT, Securities Appellate Tribunal. That is also something like a court for you to understand. It is a quasi-judicial body which practicing company secretary can appear and they can represent before this authority to any of the companies. Then reconciliation of share capital audit. So when we come to a listed company, a quarterly certificate, every 3 months, a quarterly certificate has to be taken by company secretary, and that can be given by a practicing company secretary, thanks to the recognition by SEBI. Then audit of capital market intermediaries. So this is another thing to make sure the internal control systems are proper in a company. We need to do a audit of the capital market intermediaries. So whether it is the audit, final audit or interim audit, this can be done by a company secretary. Apart from these audits, there are a lot of certifications which SEBI has given. That means what are the certificates which a company secretary can give? Certificate regarding transfer of security certification to the effect that all transfers have been completed, that company secretary can give. Certificate regarding maintenance of 100% asset cover. So we have to check the documents. If everything is in order, then we have to give the certificate. If we give a wrong certificate, remember, you're punishable under any law. Yes, just because you're company secretary, chartered accountant, you cannot give wrong certificates. It's equal to fraud. You should do your due diligence, check all the documents properly. If you're not happy, tell I can't give certificate. It's as simple as that. And we can also issue half-yearly certificate regarding maintenance of 100% security cover in respect of listed non-convertible debt securities. So in all these certificates, company secretary can give. Now we come to the role of company secretary in the Limited Liability Partnership Act. So that is a separate act. Just like you have Partnership Act, we have LLP Act. LLP is a hybrid of company and a partnership firm. In the LLP Act, even in LLP we need to file annual return. But here, if the LLP has turnover of more than 5 crores or contribution of more than 50 lakhs, then they have to get a certificate from a company secretary in practice. This is the recognition which is given to company secretaries in practice. Along with that, we have pre-certification of e-forms even in LLP. As I told you, before we file any forms to the government, the company secretary has to check it. If everything is correct, then it will be filed. So government has given that responsibility to us. Apart from that, what are the other roles of company secretary? What is the job of company secretary? Under Special Economic Zones Rules 2006, company secretary is authorized to appear as an authorized representative before the board. Under the TRAI, the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, company secretary is being authorized to represent before the dispute settlement. That is again something like a court to solve the problem. CS can go instead of lawyer. Competition Act. So under Competition Act also, the CS can be an authorized representative. So if you see, what does it mean? Under each of these laws, company secretary has knowledge. That is the meaning. Company secretary has knowledge of TRAI, Competition Act, Real Estate Regulation and Development Act, Special Economic Zone Rules, Foreign Exchange Management Act. The next is Foreign Exchange Management Act. So in Foreign Exchange Management Act, every time a company receives investment from a foreign country in form of foreign direct investment for shares or anything, that time company secretary has to give a certificate that all the laws of Companies Act and Foreign Exchange Management Act has been followed. And that is what is our responsibility and role. So apart from this, the tax laws. So company secretaries can be authorized representative for GST, and also company secretary can represent before the Customs Act. Of course, please remember that VAT is no more applicable. Now it is GST. So this is the brief overview. So as you know, in this chapter, they're just trying to give you a brief overview of role of company secretary under Companies Act, under the security laws, under the IBC, Limited Liability Partnership Act, TRAI, Competition Act. That means under different laws, what is the role of company secretary. So I hope you understood, and also please do give me your feedback of this audio revision, and we will be doing this audio revision for more chapters. Now that you're finished doing the audio revision, what you have to do is that please read this entire chapter after you stop listening to this audio revision. Read this entire chapter, and that time your understanding will be very, very good. If you still didn't understand something, again listen to the audio. And since it is audio, you can listen to it anytime from anywhere. So for more such audios, please do follow Excel Academy, and we will be always happy to help you. For more such audio revisions, please do follow Excel Academy, and we will always be happy to help you.